Hello and welcome to the World of Football Show here on Sports Tonight Live. Tonight I'm here with Raph Honigstein, he's now part of our furniture, and we have Andy Brassell, European football writer and broadcaster. Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
How are you, Raph?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, well obviously we're going to get right to it because the Clasico was the biggest match of the weekend. Would like to hear your thoughts about it, Raph?
Well, where do we start? I mean, people have written about Barcelona being impressive tactically and changing it around and how courageous it was to put Alves slightly further up the pitch. But I was most impressed with the way psychologically they reacted to the early blow. I think a lot of teams could have gone there as the underdogs, concede after 20 seconds and just cave in. And people would have almost understood, you know, you concede so early against the team, perhaps the best team in Europe right now. You can get defeated, but they came back and little by little they got back into the game. They exerted their control, their dominance, and by the end, I think they were again the Barcelona that we've come to admire over the last few years.
I don't know whether you could say that. I mean, they got back in, but do you think Real Madrid helped them to get back in? I mean, had Real Madrid actually converted their chances, would we be having this conversation?
Absolutely. I mean, Real Madrid had the chances to kill them off, and certainly at 1-0 up, but also at 1-1, Ronaldo personally probably should have killed him off himself, and he didn't.
No.
And that's another thing. I think, you know, if you have your best players not show up in a game like that, then there's a good chance you'll get beaten, and that's what happened to Madrid.
Andy, what do you think?
Well, I think Madrid really.
Great.
Well, I think Madrid really missed a trick. You know, they scored after 20 seconds, which is the best start you could possibly hope for. As you both said, they really failed to kill them off. And I just think they'll be really, really disappointed with the goals they conceded as well. And, you know, I think there's something to be looked in tactically for Mourinho, the way he went with Cohen, who's arguably the best left back in the world, in midfield. We all know Marcelo's improved, but Cohen's got the lot. He's a great attacking player, but he also develops so quickly as a defender, far quicker than.
So you think Cohen should have played
left back?
You think he's better than Marcelo?
As a left back, absolutely.
But I mean, alongside Ronaldo, those two work beautifully together, Marcelo and Ronaldo. They are the force behind Real Madrid.
Oh, perhaps, but you could argue that Cohen and Ronaldo work even better for the Portuguese national team. And that really has been responsible for Ronaldo's renaissance in the Portuguese national team over the last year and a half.
Yeah, I felt that he almost overcomplicated things with the lineup as well. I think Cohen as a right back for me didn't work. I'm not quite sure what he was trying to do there. Lassana Diarra in midfield is very good at breaking up things, but when they did have possession, he was very one-dimensional. And of course, Özil didn't work at all, which is probably not Mourinho's fault, but there was something not quite right. And when they had the early dominance, when they had the early pressing, there was a time to really kill them off, and it didn't happen.
Well, perhaps maybe do you think that those three just worked so hard on trying to, like, you know, press and steal the ball, and that they just sort of ran out of steam when it came to actually creating attacking moves?
I think that's a good argument, actually, because a lot of strikers will say, yes, we can do that, but then the bit of freshness is perhaps missing, and especially teams who play against Spain or Barcelona have said that. I remember Bastian Schweinsteiger after the World Cup semi-final saying, you know, we spent so much time chasing the ball that when we had it, we were just too tired to do anything with it.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's a very tiring game. And the problem is, of course, that it's very brave, it's very courageous, because you leave about 30 meters of space behind you. And once Barcelona do get behind you, then it's a problem, because Messi started running at people, Iniesta started running at people, while the other half of the team are still further up the pitch trying to press. But the ball's already the other side. So it's a big problem, and so far Mourinho hasn't quite figured out a way to deal with it.
Yeah, you kind of said that, didn't you, last week? I was so sure Madrid was going to win, and then you were like, no, I have a sneaky feeling that Barcelona will do something. Let's have a look at the newspapers, all the headlines that came out from Spain. AS was obviously really annoyed prior to the match about the referee, Fernandez Borbalan. He says that, they said that he hates Madrid and loves Barca, as demonstrated by a red card he didn't give to Dani Alves in a match against Racing in 2008-2009 campaign.
There's always a conspiracy theory where El Clasico is concerned.
It is, but actually we have it now. Here it is. That's AS. That's Cristiano pincha con el Barca. So that was breakdown against Barcelona. The next one we have is De Madrid al Cel, which is from Madrid to heaven. And Marca, Poco Madrid, Mucho Barca. I think that's just well, what a huge headline. Golpe de Campeón, which is a champion strike. There's a snapshot of Fabregas. And Son los mejores. So I think that's kind of explanatory. Last one. Barca Universal, Depresión en Madrid. Depression in Madrid. Why? I mean, they've got a game in hand.
Yeah, well, the depression is because they wanted to show that they're actually the better team. It's one thing beating the likes of Almeria 8-0 and Ronaldo scoring 100 goals, but then when they come up against Barcelona, they once again come up short. And there's already a debate as to whether the title would be tainted if they were to go on to win all the other games, but then lose in the second leg at the Camp Nou. And I think it's probably an argument that outside Spain no one would have, but inside Spain it's very, very important to not just win against these smaller teams and rack up the points, but also show that you're the best team and beat your rivals. And they still haven't done it.
I mean, no, that's not. I mean, they've done superbly well in the Champions League. They've done better than Barcelona have. Moreover, they've done greatly against the likes of Valencia.
Well, not when they faced Barcelona in the semi-final. They didn't, when it really mattered.
Okay, but that was last season. This is a new season.
Yeah, I know, but, you know, the first game that they've had in this season, you saw what happened.
Because so few points are dropped, it's really foreseeable that Real Madrid could lose both those games and go on to win the championship.
I think it's more unlucky. I mean, I understand that Barcelona were much better, but I do think that had Ronaldo just converted, had he actually shown up. Okay, hello Tim, because I can't have this conversation. Hello Tim, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Okay, I want to talk to you about, do you think that it was just, they were, you know, Xavi said, in my opinion, who wasn't very gracious in defeat, unlike Guardiola, he said that they were so very superior to Real Madrid. Do you think so?
They were certainly in the second half of the game. I was in the Santiago Bernabeu and I've never seen a crowd, first of all, so excited after 22 seconds when Karim Benzema scored. It was incredible. You really thought, we thought the power had shifted temporarily to Madrid, but at that point it looked like it had been permanent. Barca were rattled. They were rattled for the first 20 minutes. But then that key moment, Cristiano Ronaldo missed that chance, which he would have stuck away against any other team except his bogey team. Then there was some tactical shifting. Barcelona got that wonderful goal from Alexis. In the second half, their confidence went up as Real Madrid's confidence went down. Ronaldo missed another chance. On the breakaway, Barcelona scored and it was all over. And it was a very, very depressed, very down Real Madrid crowd, mainly because I think out of all the Clásicos there's been in 2011, some 7, the ones in the Bernabeu, I think they never really were confident of beating Barcelona. They knew they were superior, but they really, really, really did think that this time Barcelona were coming on poor away form, not in having a fantastic season by their standards. Of course, Real Madrid, 15 wins in a row. They're really, really down here in the Spanish capital. Jose Mourinho has just come out in a press conference and said, we are leaders. He hasn't seen the league table because they're not at the moment. But it's a very depressed Spanish capital, very depressed Real Madrid at the moment.
59 goals scored and 7 conceded in their last 15 matches. Of course, not counting the Barcelona one. I have a question, and that's to do with the fact that Leonardo Messi should have probably gotten a second yellow. Now, if I was the referee on the pitch, I wouldn't have given it. I'm being really fair here. I'm being objective. I wouldn't have given that because the first one was for dissent. But all in all, let me just ask you a question. Had that been Ronaldo rather than Messi, do you think that he would have gotten that second yellow and been sent off?
I think that's impossible to say. I don't believe there's nonsense from the newspapers like I heard from As talking about the conspiracy. So the first one was for dissent. The second one, I think the referee thought, hang on a second, maybe I'm not 100% sure whether this was a yellow card. From the replays, it could have been, and it certainly was a similar level of foul that Xabi Alonso got and he got the yellow card just before it, Alexis.
Yeah.
So maybe he was thinking, look, okay, on this particular occasion, I'm going to let it go. But we saw Lassana Diarra put in 4, 5, 6 yellow card tackles before he got his yellow card, so it was certainly balanced some way. But the press conference after Jose Mourinho was asked this, and it was very unlike Jose Mourinho to say, do you think he should have gone? He said, well, from where I was sitting, it did look like a foul and a yellow, but you know what? I was a long way away. I trust the referee. I don't really have any complaints. So Jose Mourinho was saying that Barca deserved to win the game, so if he says it, then I think we have to stick with that.
Andy, what do you think?
Well, I think going on from that, looking at Mourinho's reaction is quite interesting. What
He
you
was so docile.
what you really have to ask is, have Barca completely got the psychological drop on him? And, you know, he's meant to be the man who's the master of psychology. But the fact that they're getting so close to beating them, like they did in the second leg of the Super Cup, like they did when they dominated and they had the chances in the first half of this, is this the barrier that's stopping them touching Barcelona? And what do people feel about that in the Spanish capital, Tim?
They're getting closer, and this is it, the first 25 minutes, they really were on top. Barca they couldn't string a pass together. Real Madrid were really pressing, and hearing Raphael talking earlier, it took a huge amount of effort for them. Karim Benzema was chasing back to the halfway line and winning the ball off Xavi Hernandez, and that's something we've not seen really from certainly the French striker recently, but this season they are getting there. I don't think it really matters what they do against Barcelona. I say that because Barcelona have been poor in the smaller games, you could say, away from home, and I really don't think that's going to change. I think they are going to continue dropping points. I think Real Madrid are still going to be very consistent, so I don't think that the two Clásicos in the league this season are going to be as important as they've been in the past. I think it is going to be one on the grounds of Getafe, in the grounds of Racing as well, so they don't necessarily have to beat Barcelona head-to-head in these two games. But they would certainly like to, and whether they can do it in the Camp Nou next year, who knows? Maybe Real Madrid will keep on progressing. Maybe there'll be some improvement in the winter window. Another player or two brought in. Maybe players like Sahin will start to perform a little more once they're back from injury. So they could see some reinforcements in Madrid.
Raf thinks that basically Real Madrid love to score these 8-0 victories away, but that's the point. Is Barcelona actually managing that this season?
No, well, I agree with Tim. I think Barcelona started the season with only having themselves to beat, but they are doing a good job of beating themselves and not winning these smaller games. And I think in the end, the title, as Tim said, will probably be decided not by those two games, but by the mental fatigue or the extent of the mental fatigue that Barcelona have, not just with the travelling now with the Club World Championship, but also with these daily slog, and you win everything and then you play against the sides of Getafe. It's very difficult, and that's why ultimately every dynasty in football has an end, because even the best teams just can't raise themselves for these sort of normal games anymore.
Tim, also, can you tell us what we've seen the headlines in all Spain and all the newspapers. What were the other stories? I understand that Marcelo refused to shake Piqué's hands. What other stories were coming out of Madrid inside those papers?
The really big story is the way that Cristiano Ronaldo has been attacked in the Madrid press.
It's ridiculous.
As you've probably seen in the headlines over the weeks, he is God in Madrid. He's the greatest player. He's the machine. He's the Ronaldonator. And suddenly they have turned on him, and they've noticed that he's only scored 1 goal in 10 Clásicos, and that was the goal at the Copa del Rey final. And he just seems to freeze in those particular games. I think it's very, very unfair, because it's not exactly a player you could say who doesn't try. He tries to give everything to score, but he's got a mental block against Barcelona. And a lot of the papers in Madrid, of course, are now saying, you know what, well, Messi is the king. Messi is the one who delivers in these big games, and Cristiano isn't. And that's what's been the biggest story for me, the way they turned on him. And it's a dangerous thing to do with Real Madrid, who have a very strong influence on these papers. But the papers have really gone in favour of the fans. There was some booing in the Bernabeu against Ronaldo. I didn't really hear it myself. I think it was some sectors, but there are a sector of the fans who think, yes, he can get 4 or 5 against Osasuna, but it really matters. He's just not there for us.
They've also turned on Ozil to a certain extent, haven't they?
All that partying.
Yeah, there's been, it's difficult to say without proof. There's been stories of he's enjoying Madrid, you could say, and he himself said in an interview recently that he's just not in good form at the moment. He wants to get back to his form, but he's not the same player as he was last season, and he's really struggling. But I'd like to say some kind of congratulations to Jose Mourinho for helping to make it a good game. He tried to play his forward four, basically, which has been doing so well this season, of Benzema, Ronaldo, Di Maria, and Ozil as well. So there was talk that maybe he'd be packing the central midfield with Lassana Diarra and Khedira and Xabi Alonso. So he did try and bring on the spectacle, which is obviously more than he did last year when he played Pepe. So we have to be nice to Mourinho a little bit and say he tried to give us a good game.
Ronaldonator. What was that nickname that you gave him? Ronaldo.
I think they're just playing around. He's the machine. He's the half human, half machine Terminator, except against Barcelona, of course. But he's good against Getafe.
Probably worst nickname ever. Tell us about the other. Atletico Madrid lost.
It's a really grim day in the Spanish capital. It's great. They managed to they've been in a hole, as we know, and they've just carried on digging They're getting worse and worse as the weeks go on. They're scraping victories at home against teams like Rayo Vallecano and Levante, and away from home they haven't won a single game. And as Marcus said, they committed collective suicide completely on Sunday night against Espanyol and managed to be 2-3 goals down after 17 minutes. And if you see the highlights, it's abysmal defending. And these are the kings of bad defending. I've never seen anything like it. Letting players just shoot from 30 yards and wander through. And Manzano borrowed time. He really is.
Okay, I just want to ask you this. Is this really his fault? Because when you look at Valencia, they did really well in the fact that they've bought talent in all areas of the pitch. But with Atletico Madrid, they go and spend all this money on Arda Turan and Diego. And then at the back, they haven't really ever reinforced as well.
Well, they brought in players like Felipe Luis, who Barcelona interested in a year or two, and Godin. And Dominguez, in theory, is a great defender. He's a Spanish under-21, and they brought in Silvio from Portugal, again, an international. But something happens to Atletico Madrid defenders. As soon as they move to Atletico Madrid, they turn into terrible, terrible players. Away from Atletico, they're fantastic. But Manzano never really had the support of the fans when he was appointed in the summer. He's a very professorial, very quiet figure who doesn't really get animated either in press conferences or on the touchline. And they were used to Quique Sanchez Flores, who's a very flamboyant figure. They wanted someone like Joaquin Caparrós, who went to Mallorca in the end after a quick stop in Switzerland. So they wanted a really strong figure on the touchline, and they're just not getting that with Manzano. So the fans never really backed him. They've got two presidents, you could say, Atletico Madrid, so there's a lot of division in the club whether or not they want him to carry on. And they've got a Europa League game on Thursday. They've got a Copa del Rey game coming up as well. They've got a league game on Sunday. These are really huge crunch matches for Atletico. If Manzano's not gone by the end of the week, certainly by Christmas, unless things improve dramatically.
What I find extraordinary, Tim, is the murmurs of criticism about Radamel Falcao. Now, of course, they did spend a lot of money on him. But there are murmurs around the camp at Atletico about, well, you have to provide for him to score. Surely they saw him last season. That is what he does. Presumably that's why they've bought Turan. They know he's phenomenal in the air. But is this the point at which they're really missing Kun Agüero? Because if nothing's happened, he can drop and create stuff.
I completely agree, having seen Falcao quite a lot this season. He's the target man. He's not going to create his own goals, and nor should he. If you stick it in the box, he will score. And that's what he got one of the goals on Sunday night, and that's what happened. He a brave challenge with the goalkeeper. But you're right, what they did do is put in these creative players like Arda Turan and Diego, but Falcao's not really getting the supply. An awful lot's gone wrong with Jose Antonio Reyes as well. He's fallen out with Gregorio Manzano. The fans are behind him rather than being behind the manager. He looks like being sold off to Galatasaray any day now. But Falcao's not getting the supply, and they've only got one really functioning striker. They sold Diego Forlan and Kun Agüero, brought in Falcao. They brought in Adrian, who came in from Deportivo, but he's nothing really more than a substitute striker. So they're struggling up front as well. So it's all gone a little bit wrong for Atletico. There's talent at moments. They are great players. I think Arda and Diego at times are very good, but it's just not clicking for them. There's no real confidence on the pitch. There's no real spirit. And you get the feeling perhaps they're just not playing for their manager at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Tim, so much for all of that. We'll be sure to see you next week. So what do you guys really think? I mean, I know that Espanyol has actually a special relationship with Real Madrid, but it is a sad day for the capital. Do you think Atletico should get rid of their coach?
Well, I don't really see how it's going to change anything. They turn over coaches all the time, and there have been good coaches that have gone through there in the past, the likes of Quique Sanchez Flores, who did such a great job at Valencia and did a decent job in a limited time at Benfica before, again, he was really undone by political machinations. So it's obviously a problem of stability. There's a huge turnover every year. They dump a load of players, they spend a load more on a load more unsuitable players, and they're in exactly the same position as they were last year. But it keeps the economy going at a bad moment. I
agree. I think they're such a poorly run club. But Espanyol are doing really well at the moment. What do you think? Do you think they could be odds on reaching the Champions League or anything like that?
No.
Doesn't matter anyway. Italy will take it.
Take what?
Champions League, 3 teams.
Yeah. Well, you haven't had much to celebrate. So for once there are 3 Italian teams through, it's nice.
Okay, well, I'm not even going to listen to that anymore. But we are going to discuss Italy and the death of Calcio, whether this is really just a myth or whether Calcio really is dying, considering the fact that they now have 3 teams in the Champions League. We'll be back after the break. Hello and welcome back to the World Football Show here on Sports Tonight Live. Now we're off to my favourite subject, and we're going to be talking about Italy. Did any of you watch the Bologna-Milan match?
No.
I've seen the highlights.
What did you? Okay, so basically this is the story. The ref was unbelievably poor because he actually probably missed the entire show. Gazzetta said that whilst Ibra scored and there was just the brilliance of Bologna, who have a new coach. It's the man that Palermo sacked before the start of the campaign. That whilst everyone played it superbly, the real star of the match was in fact Gianluca Rocchi, the referee who happened to miss everything that happened during the game. So there were 2 handballs. There was a non-existent penalty that was awarded to Ibra, although you disagree on that, don't you? And just everything. Antonini got a silly yellow card. And this was the same man that firstly has a thing against Inter. He seems to hate them. 16 matches, 7 red cards. Moreover, he's the one that did the 3-0 Napoli game with Inter.
Yes.
Horrendous man. He was also in the Calciopoli, he was involved in the Calciopoli scandal. But he was acquitted. But during the time that they were investigating him, he wasn't even suspended, not even for 1 match. So, I mean...
Well, clearly Italian football fans, just like Portuguese football fans, love a conspiracy. But I think these were bad mistakes, certainly, in the Bologna game. But I think it's taking it up a level.
You think it was just mistakes?
Yeah, I think it's taking it up a level to sort of imply dishonesty. As Rafa, I think would probably agree, I can understand completely on the Ibra penalty. He did make the most of the situation, but I think it was Pontevedra, the number 90, who went in quite clumsily and 2-footed, and a foot was dangled just after that. And I think that's what made the referee go for it. He still had the 2-footed lunge in his mind, and Ibra really took advantage of that.
Let's have a look at the goals, because I actually disagree. I don't think it was a penalty. Moreover, that was very close. Moreover, Max Allegri, actually, who is the coach of Milan, admitted that Ibra dived. But if you'll
surely, I'm not saying
the
it's
second challenge, but I think the first one he gets hit, and
please look at this goal. Was this not the most unbelievable lob? And it just makes it in. That was Di Vaio, who was actually superb during the entire match. Old, but certainly not.
He often is.
He often is. Actually, Bologna have been doing really well. I mean, they did really well against Juventus in the Coppa Italia on Thursday, and now they're doing. It's very much a Pioli team at the moment.
It's probably a good thing he scored, because otherwise
Amelia could have been in trouble.
It would have been the red card.
Absolutely.
There we go. That's another one that should have been this. Look at this. Boateng does all of that, and Seedorf's strike is unbelievable. But Boateng was really important during that time.
It's not bad for a 45-year-old, that strike.
I'm telling you, he's only 34.
Wow.
He proves himself more than handy later in the game.
Oh, it was a brilliant strike, but he sort of made up for it later after his handball, which wasn't given to Bologna. I think Bologna got really shafted on this. This is it. This is the little penalty claim. And you're saying that the first one was indeed a foul. But if you look, he was trying to pass it to Pato, who was in an offside position anyway.
Yeah, but I can understand. See, that's the penalty, and then afterwards, that's a dive. But in addition, it's probably still a penalty.
No, I don't think so.
I'm not convinced, but I can certainly see why the referee gave it. As I say, I think the first challenge was still in his mind when Ibra took advantage and went over for the second.
And this is the other Bologna goal. This is it was a huge error from Marco Amelia, and Diamanti scored.
Italian goalkeepers used to be really good ones.
They are really good. You keep saying that, but they are.
Yeah, but because we keep seeing really awful goalkeeper mistakes.
Okay, no, that's not true. The last one that you said was ridiculous. It was nothing to do with the goalkeeper. With this, I can see that it was Marco Amelia. You always love to do everything that has to go against Italy. No. I don't know, I don't think so. But Bologna got really shafted in that match, in my opinion. I think that it should have been, they deserved a point.
I think it's particularly frustrating, and I can understand why that leads to conspiracy theories when, like them, you have 34% of the possession, you work really hard, you have exactly the same amount of shots, more or less, as Milan, and you still don't end up winning. That you play virtually the perfect match and you get undone by moments like that. That's what gets people out of hand, I guess.
Yeah, well... Inter will have something to say with it. Hello, Ollie, how are you?
Hey, Mina, how's it going?
I'm good, thank you. Ollie's my childhood friend. He's a Sky Sports Italia presenter. Ollie, did you watch the match? What did you think of all of this? What do you think of Gianluca Rocchi?
But Rocky's always been a problem in Italy. He's always had bad performances. He had a bad performance against in the Inter-Napoli game, and again, he was a disaster on Sunday. So we're kind of used to seeing disastrous performances from him.
Do you think there's anything to do with like a conspiracy theory because of the fact that he was involved in the Calciopoli and the fact that he's then been promoted to UEFA Elite, you know, Champions League? Should he really be the man representing Italy on that kind of ground?
Well, he's only one of them. I mean, there's quite a few referees representing Italy. You've got Tagliavento, you've got Rizzoli, who for me is by far the best referee in Italy. Tagliavento's good, but in Italy he's often criticised because he lets the game flow a bit too much. He'd be better in the Premier League. He's a perfect Premier League referee. Rocky's not the best referee, but he's one of the older referees, and that's the reason why he's part of the European referees, because he's older and he has more experience. He's definitely not the best referee, though. But I disagree with this whole conspiracy theory thing. I think
but you're a Milan fan.
No, it's always a conspiracy theory in Italy, and I think we need to stop this. But unfortunately, that's the Italian mentality. They're always going to think there was something going wrong. There's always, oh, this guy paid that guy. I really don't think anything happened. I just think Rocky's not the best referee.
Okay, but afterwards, apparently he did apologise to Pioli, and he said, oh, look, you know, this match was really hard to officiate. And Pioli was actually really good about it afterwards. He refused to... Which
is what we need. That's what we need in Italy. We need people like Pioli to say...
Yeah, but we also need Rocky to not be officiating games if he continues to do things like he did against Napoli and Inter, and like he did with Bologna and Milan.
I agree with you, but if you think about it, it's all about what happens in Italy, because in Italy, that kind of thing gets taken out of hand and everyone loses their mind because there are these ridiculous mistakes. But if you look at Stoke-Tottenham, there were some unbelievable mistakes by the referee in Stoke-Tottenham.
Yeah.
No one talks about it because in this case, they have a different mentality.
Raph, you only think Italian referees, right?
No.
I just think it's a question of mentality. In Italy, we have a mentality where every single mistake, someone's being robbed, and it's just wrong. It happens. You make mistakes, even in the Champions League games where you have two guys on the sidelines who are supposed to help things, and yet they make equally big mistakes. So it's just a question of mentality. Rocky's made mistakes. He's not the best referee. It happens, but he apologized, and I think Pioli was very good about it in the sense that he didn't get stressed out about it, and Allegri was very honest, saying that Ibra did dive, which I mean you can't deny when you see the replay.
Allegri was really good like that. He's always very honest. Tell us about Carlos Tevez. Everything about that transfer.
Yeah, the Tevez deal is interesting because right now, essentially, the idea, what they're saying in Italy, or what we're saying anyway at Sky, is that he has an agreement with Milan. He's already agreed to Milan. He wants to play at Milan because he wants to carry on winning trophies. I think that's the most important thing for him right now. And he wants to play in a top club. And he knows that by going to Paris Saint-Germain, that's not going to be the case because the project is still long, they're still building it up, and it's going to be a long time before he gets the kind of level that he wants to be playing at. So he wants to go to Milan. The problem is that Milan aren't willing to buy him outright now. And that kind of makes sense because he's not eligible for the Champions League. And we're talking about a player who hasn't really played a single minute of football for about 2 months now. So it makes sense that Milan don't want to buy him outright. They want a free loan, and they want to buy him this whole obligation to buy, which is the new thing in Italy right now, which Galliani essentially invented with the Ibrahimovic deal. They want that kind of deal set up, an obligation to buy for 23 million euros in the summer.
Andy, what do you think? Do you think that he, with PSG, do you think that that's likely that they will manage to get him in the end?
Well, I think there's something really easy to be worked out here between Galliani and Leonardo, who obviously know each other very well. The fact is, PSG do have the money. They need the cachet of having Tevez. But as Ollie says, the project's not ready yet. So it makes sense maybe for PSG to buy him, the project to be ready for him in a couple of years, him to go on loan to Milan. And of course, PSG can stomach that sort of loss. And Tevez has a limited lifespan at a club anyway. He has maybe a year and a half, 2 years before he falls out with everyone. So by the time he's ready to move to the project at PSG, he will have fallen out with everyone at Milan.
Seedorf said that he will go wherever there's money.
There's little doubt about that.
Yeah, well, that's my question. I think as a Milan fan, would you or would the Milan fan actually want somebody like Tevez in the dressing room with all the baggage that he brings, with the egos that are already in that dressing room?
I think at the end of the day, Tevez, no matter how big an ego he has, he's a top quality player. And if you bring someone like Tevez to the Italian league, the way the Italian league is at the moment, Serie A is not the highest quality at the moment. If you bring Tevez into a team, you're guaranteeing yourself the Scudetto, I think.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
whoever signs Tevez for me will win the Scudetto,
Well,
especially considering that he'd only be playing in Serie A. And it makes, you know, at the end of the day, one thing that Milan have always prided themselves on is being a club that manages to reform these sort of bad boy players.
wait, hold on. I'm really sorry, Ollie. There's two things. Firstly, you've just given Raf ammunition to say Italian football's not the highest quality at the moment. And B, if Milan were to buy Tevez, then they would win. Are you serious over Juve at the moment?
I think whoever gets Tevez, I mean, I think if Juventus bought Tevez,
Yeah, but with that, you know that's not going to happen, though. So, and you know that Inter's already come out and said they can't. So basically, what you're saying is Milan will win them if they get Tevez.
I don't think you can really say otherwise. Milan already have the best side in Italy from a point of view of their entire team. If you look at their entire team, they are by far the best side in Italy.
No, they're far. Well, then
Juventus have done an incredible job. I agree with you. I think they've been incredible, and I think what Conte's done is amazing. And particularly because he's brought back the mentality that Juventus always had, which was a winning mentality, which they lost in the last few years. And Conte's done an incredible job to bring them back. But Juventus have 11, maybe 12, 13 players at most. The bench is not good enough.
Wait,
And if you lose Pirlo or you lose Marchisio, from that moment on, Juventus are very much...
pretty much like if Milan lost Ibra. Andy, back me up. Would you?
I think it's debatable that Juve are that short on players, but I do think it's an interesting question as regards Tevez and Milan, because of course the fact is they're nominally down on Cassano. Robinho is becoming a dead weight, so they really do need that gap. And it's not a problem with managing Tevez's ego. For the first year or so, he's been good as gold everywhere for the first year or so. So as long as they've only got him on loan, no problem.
Here's the when they were asked the Ballon d'Or nominations and they asked Ibra to give a quote, he said, "In my head, I am the strongest of all. I certainly don't need the Ballon d'Or to prove that I am number one."
How modest for him.
So tell me something, because with Tevez, very much last season, you had, Mancini's men just giving him the ball whenever they could so that he could do something. Ibra was that man in Inter, although I concede he's not that man in Milan. Now he's very much the assist maker as well and all that. But who are they going to pass the ball to?
The thing is, if you get Tevez, essentially what you're doing by getting Tevez is the kind of player who, yes, he's going to come out the box, but essentially the majority of the time he spends in and around the box. Ibrahimovic, if you watch him this season, how many times has he come to the halfway line to pick the ball up and sent Nocerino through on goal, for example? That's what you're going to get with Tevez, is someone who stays up there. Pato is completely in and out, and there's a very worrying statistic for Milan, is that when Pato plays, Milan don't win. 10 games this season, they've only won 2 of them when Pato's played from the beginning. So as much as you might say Robinho's a dead weight, I agree with you. He misses the most unbelievable chances. I mean, he misses the impossible. But when he plays, Milan work a lot better than when Pato plays. The minute Pato's on the pitch, something goes wrong. There's no understanding between Ibrahimovic, Boateng, Pato. With Robinho, at least there's an understanding going on. And yes, he misses the chances, but at the end of the day, Milan are getting the result. And I think Tevez will do that for you. And essentially for me, if Milan buy Tevez, I wouldn't be surprised if Pato left in the summer, especially because I think Milan have had enough of his various injury problems. He's had, I can't remember if it's 11 or 14 problems since he's arrived at Milan, muscle problems.
Apparently he's being linked to Juventus, as I'm sure everyone knows. I'm a Juve fan. I hope that's not true, and I hope that he doesn't go there. But thank you, Ollie. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much.
Right.
Okay, so he said that Italy is not the highest quality at the moment, but yet they have 3 teams in the Champions League, more than any other. So what does that tell you about Italian football?
Not that much, really. It's going to take them years to win that 4th spot back from Germany. In fact, they're getting behind again this year, despite having 3 teams through. Overall, the league is not performing well enough, especially in the Europa League, which I know has not been taken seriously by the Serie A teams, but that's something that's beginning to hurt them because other countries do take it seriously, and over the length of 5 years, these points are now being missed, and that's why it's a good start, it's a comeback, but they need really to sustain that. But the interesting thing for me is, none of us so far have mentioned Udinese. Why can't they win the
The thing with Udinese is that they play a kind of football that's so exhaustive that you can't possibly keep up.
Yeah, but that's what they said about Dortmund last year. Exactly the same
Yeah,
argument.
and look how well they did in the Champions League.
No, but they won the title. I'm talking about winning the title.
Okay, but the problem is as well is with Allegri, you know, like for me, I think he's the greatest tactician in Italy, but he's not someone who knows how to handle very big problems. He's not someone who knows how to handle perhaps pressure, which is why he constantly seems to be deflecting. Whenever they say, oh, Udinese, maybe you can win the title. And then he'll be like, no, we don't want to talk about such things.
But that's a great way to handle the pressure. That's exactly what Dortmund did. Up until, I think, 3 games before the end of the season, they still said, well, we see what happens. You know, if we win it, it's great. If not, Bayern are still the favourites. Bayern were like 8th by then, you know. That's a great way to handle pressure.
The most obvious point about Udinese is everyone had already written them off before the start of the season. The fact that they'd not just lost Alexis and Zapata, but Inler. It's all really about Inler.
And then they didn't qualify for the Champions League.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's all we have time for but on this topic, which is really annoying. But if you come back, then you can hear them talk about Germany and France because they are the most exciting leagues in the planet. See you in a bit. Hello and welcome to the World of Football Show. Please don't forget, by the way, that you can tweet us with any questions you have or any comments or just to agree with me on @STWorldFootball. But now we're over to Andy and we're going to discuss the French Football League and PSG. So we've already kind of covered the fact that Tevez and and Milan and what that could do for PSG. I still think he'd be great for PSG, better than he would be for Milan.
Well, I think that's something further down the line, but the one thing we can be certain of is they'll spend a lot of cash in the January window, regardless of financial fair play.
Think so?
Yeah, the big talk in L'Équipe this morning, of course, is very important for them to clinch Beckham. That they still feel at the club that that's pretty close, but they're looking at reinforcing every sector. Really, they've only got Kevin Gamero up front. Mevlut Erding's a decent Ligue 1 striker, but for the sort of places they want to go, he's not quite good enough. So they're looking at getting someone else in there. They want to get another centre back in. There's no doubt about it because there's a real lack of leadership when Mamadou Sakho, the captain's, not in the team. And they're still just behind Montpellier on goal difference. They've recovered after a really poor couple of weeks where Antoine Camboire, the coach, was under real pressure.
He's being quite, he's being a bit disrespectful apparently, from what I hear.
Well, he is, because he's openly held discussions with Carlo Ancelotti. He's openly looked at other coaches. They discussed Makalele taking the job, even as a short-term measure. But really, that's the last thing they need. They need stability. And Camboire is quite a combustible character, but he's actually conducted himself with a real lot of dignity in this situation. But it's a very difficult situation for him, having built a team that had a lot of spirit and had a lot going for it in a collective sense last season, and trying to integrate 7 or 8 stars into it who aren't necessarily established stars, the likes of Menez and Pastore.
Yeah. Now we have Laura. Hello, Laura. How are you?
Hi, Mina. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Nice to have you on.
Oh, thanks so much for welcoming me.
Okay, so tell us about what you think. Who do you think that PSG will be going for in the winter? Do you think it's important that they'll get Beckham?
In terms of manager or transfers?
Transfers.
Well, they're the club that want to sign everybody, aren't they? There was a nice splash on page 2 of L'Équipe today, which detailed that Kolo Touré and Carlos Tevez are wanted. I understand that PSG would only be interested in a loan deal, though, and of course they're not. Nobody would be in the market for players who are known to be causing disruptions and to be problematic. Touré actually gave he's thought to have given an interview to SoFoot magazine recently too, in which he complained about his treatment at City. The club launched an investigation when they found a translation of it, and he's denied that. But of course, that's not the kind of unsettled kind of attitude that anybody wants to inherit. They've been linked. Well, they've been linked to interest with Solomon Kalou, Seville defender Martin Caceres. I think obviously the big name would be Beckham that they have been linked to. And L'Équipe reported that they were very optimistic and that this was 95% done. But the fact that the others they've been linked with are strikers and defenders, it makes you wonder, they don't need Beckham. They really don't need him. They've got such a wonderful midfield.
They do, actually. But it seems to be that whenever everyone talks about France, we always talk about PSG. What else is going on, you know, with all the other teams in the French league at the moment? Any possible transfers? Anyone likely to steal the throne?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you've heard about Montpellier's incredible run. It's still at the top now. It's still level on points, though, with PSG. But there's a lot of talk about players moving away from Montpellier rather than anyone being brought in. And I think with the position that they have in Ligue 1, they risk losing an awful lot more in January than they do stand to gain. Everybody's looking at the league's top scorer, Olivier Giroud. I know Newcastle have obviously been linked to Yang Ambia, their best defender. So, and because Montpellier, they don't have an awful lot of money. They don't have mega backings. They've had the same owner since the 1970s. So there's not an awful lot of funds there to replace those that do go. So I'd be more concerned about players leaving Ligue 1 to perhaps go to the Premier League. That saying, Giroud would have no problem at all.
Do you think he'll go to Arsenal?
I hope not. Because I'm a Montpellier fan.
Of course, the other big problem for them is the other big problem for them is the African Cup of Nations in January. A few of their key players are going to go to that, and their main playmaker, Younes Belhanda, who, funnily enough, has been touted as that Arab superstar that PSG are looking to sign because Leonardo's never rated Adel Taarabt, and he turned down the opportunity to sign him in the summer. It could be Belhanda, but they're really going to miss him for a month. And Morocco are in a group that I think they can probably get through in the African Cup of Nations. So that could be a big problem for them. But that's another thing that plays to the advantage of PSG and Lille, who have to be the two main contenders to the title, because Lyon are skint as well, and they'll probably have to sell a few as soon as they can.
Yeah, well, they've made money from the Champions League.
Lyon, yeah. They've been hitting the headlines for different reasons. You're bound to have heard about the match fixing. Well, I don't really think it got as far as allegations, but fortunately UEFA kind of quashed any thought that their 7-1 win over Dinamo Zagreb was anything to be concerned over.
Fishy.
But I mean, I'd worry again for them that they maybe can't sell players. Wenger came out and said that he wasn't interested in Gourcuff. He's not in the market for anyone in attack. I think what he'd probably want to do. I was at Arsenal on Saturday, and if anything, I think they need to be after a fullback.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Lord. That's all we have time for. Thank you so much. I hope to see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Raf, tell us what's happening in Germany.
Well, a lot of things are happening. In the table, Bayern have now all but secured the Autumn Championship. It's a title that doesn't exist, but it's awarded to the team who goes into the winter break at the top of the table. Now, there's one more game to go. If they were to lose very, very heavily and Dortmund win by hundreds of goals, then they could still overtake them. In all reality, Bayern will finish the year top. And of course, for them, that's not just the most important thing, but the only thing. So they're all very, very happy. The performance wasn't very convincing against Stuttgart, but they still got the win.
You don't care as long as they get the win.
Correct. And the debate at the moment is very interesting, because a lot of it is about Lukas Podolski and where he might go on the winter break.
Oh yeah, is that what's all over the newspapers at the moment?
Absolutely. He's been heavily linked with a move to Schalke, heavily linked with a move to Dortmund, and also heavily linked, of course, with a move to Arsenal. And there were some interesting developments, because they asked the Dortmund coach, Jürgen Klopp, yesterday after the game against Kaiserslautern, which they only drew, and he said, well, Lukas Podolski, there's a lot of hype, but he very rarely actually performs according to the hype. He's too expensive in relation to his actual performance. And, of course, Podolski, being the kind of guy he is, went straight back, went to a microphone and said, thank you very much. By the way, I've turned them down twice. I don't even want to go to Dortmund.
Well done, Podolski.
Which, in a funny way, made the Schalke rumours stronger, because Schalke are such rivals of Dortmund that people thought he's already sort of setting himself up as a fan's favourite by having such a go at Dortmund.
Good, well done.
But it's a complicated situation, because Cohen and Schalke is also a problem. And he's been so much of he's been the Totti of Köln. He's the face, he's the heart, he's the soul of that team. And if he were to go, it'd be problematic. But it's very, very interesting. So I think for all those reasons, it's more likely
That Schalke will get him in the end.
no, it's more likely that he'll go abroad because it
Oh,
would avoid
really?
all the internal Bundesliga politics. And he would love to have a chance to go, especially to the Premier League. Arsenal have scouted him. The problem is we know they like to scout players to death. And I think this
Never
might be
actually make
just
the
one of
final
those
move.
cases where they look at him so many times but still aren't quite sure.
He's my mum's absolute favourite player. She
Really?
thinks he's her ideal man.
I'm a big fan, actually. I once received a lollipop from the Cohen carnival that was actually from Lukas Podolski, that was given to a friend of mine
The
by him.
used lollipop.
The wrapper was still on it.
Oh, good.
So that was good enough for me. The ceiling was all good.
Fine.
So I'd love to shake his hand if he comes to London. But of course, he has improved so much at club level since he's gone back to Cohen. Is he not perhaps a little tepid about doing the same thing he did before when he went to Bayern and sort of getting lost in the mix?
Well, yes, I mean, he's a homebody. He was always talking about going back to Köln. I miss Köln, and Köln is so lovely, and Munich is horrible. But apparently, you know, Joachim Löw, the Germany manager, has come out and said he's matured, he's grown up as a person. He himself has said, no, I'm a much more mature person. He moved to Munich 5 years ago. So he probably did do some growing up in between. But it'd be very interesting to see him in a different league, in a different environment, because at the moment it's very weird because he's always delivered for Germany. He's been
I know, he just
constantly,
doesn't seem to deliver
but
for anyone else.
in the Bundesliga, you know, still having said that, it's his best season ever. Involved in 18 goals this season. For
Well, to be honest, that's all that I can really take on the Bundesliga. But my mum will be glad to hear that he has matured as a person. But join us after the break and we'll be discussing who is our choice for best ever left back to finish our dream team. See you in a bit. Hello and welcome back to the World Football Show. Okay, so basically last week we were discussing who were the best centre-backs and we went through the results and sadly I didn't win and I was actually nowhere near it, which is so weird. But if you have a look at the results, you'll see that Beckenbauer got 31%. Raph, you're annoyed with that because he's not actually a centre-back.
Well, I'm not annoyed. Of course, he belongs in any
Yes,
world best 11, but perhaps not as a centre-back.
Cannavaro got 22% of the votes, more, and I genuinely think this is my producer calling in or tweeting in because that's who he wanted. And I can't believe that Claudio Gentile was not there. That is absolutely abysmal. He is the best ever. Let's have a look at the team so far. So we've got Yashin, Cafu, on our Panini-like stickers, Cannavaro and Beckenbauer. And now we're here to discuss who is the best left back. You've got 30 seconds. You know the rules. Please tweet us at STWorldFootball so that you can agree with one of us or suggest one of your own. But Andy, you go ahead now.
Has to be Roberto Carlos. He's perhaps not the best surfer on the planet, but as a left back, he's got all it is. I think the energy he brought to the role, the fact that he worked as a duo with Cafu is really, really important, and he just changed the whole position. I don't think you want to dwell so much on the free kicks, but just the pace and the energy that he brought to the role, that he had a setback with Inter in Europe and still went on to become a legend at Real Madrid. And the fact that he can still play at such a high level now, he's 38, it's incredible, and it's a testament to his athleticism.
He's a player manager now, Andy, you know?
That's right.
Well, thank you for that. And I think Carlos is one of the best left backs ever. I always think your choices, but who did you go for, Ralph?
Well, I was sort of thinking of putting Andreas Bremer forward again because I didn't get him in as a right back.
Just continue.
But I'm actually picking Vicente Lizarazu, World Cup winner, European winner, European Cup winner. The guy's won everything and also has been always a fantastic professional. Lovely, lovely guy off the pitch as well. The player that you want in your team takes full responsibility, tremendous engine, up and down, as good as he's going forward as he was defending. Just a complete left-back package.
I.e., just please vote for me. No one else is worth it. I went for Maldini, Paolo Maldini. I don't think that is any much of a surprise considering Italians are the best defenders. But of course it's got to be Maldini more for the fact that he was just such a great captain. He was such a great person. He knew how to marshal the defence. He was he had this ability to tackle opponents so cleanly and always on time. He was more than happy to run the full length of the pitch to follow his man. In the dressing room, he was a saint. He knew exactly how to exert his control, but in a way that commanded respect. I'm sure you understand that he had a really bad reception when he retired at the time. Milan fans very much think Baresi is their number one captain, but with Maldini, he was probably the best ever left back in the world, certainly Milan's best ever. And he sort of, Cesare Maldini was so big in Italy, so when Paolo was growing up, it was a bit like, oh, is he ever going to live up to his father? And in fact, he did better. Apparently, I read he used to be a Juve fan. I don't know if that's actually true, but I wouldn't be surprised. Half of Italy.
Oh, we all, eh?
Okay, but that's all we had time for. Did you guys enjoy yourselves?
Always.
Very much so.
Okay, that's good. Right, please do watch us next week. We'll be on at the same time as usual, and then you can find out who won the scores of all our dream team, basically. Now we have the Brazilian calls with Brazilian commentary. These are the 5 best from the season. Have a look now.